because I generally am not like a serious person. Hi and welcome. I'm Karen Sims with the Trauma and Resiliency Initiative and True Healing Solutions. And I have the honor of having Rhonda Bayless, who I will let fully introduce herself. She's with the Center for Wellness for Urban Women in Indianapolis, Indiana. And when we thought about kind of moving forward with our conversations about how to stay rooted and grounded and well in complex times and to elevate voices of leaders who we thought embody those values, I was fortunate enough to actually know someone, and I reached out to Rhonda, and I am so happy that she said yes. And we have a couple more people who will be coming on in the end of the month, but I am just very grateful that Rhonda is our first guest. So, Rhonda, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, first, thank you for having me. Of course, I would have said yes, but as you said, Rhonda Bayless, Executive Director, Centers of Wellness for Urban Women. We also just go by CEWU here in Indianapolis. We've been around for 19 years, and we really center the whole health of women, and especially Black women here in Indianapolis. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you because I know your work has been so rooted in this. And so, yeah, let's get going.
Okay. And so I'm gonna be much more you're laughing and joking. Rhonda and I have really known each other for a long time. If you have right since Lyric has been around, my daughter Lyric's been around for going on 30 years. Believe it or not, Rhonda, I'm gonna date you. She'll be 30 in September. So
I,
I have
I
known
think
you
you
at
were
least
pregnant.
that
Yeah,
long. And
yeah, you were pregnant with lyrics when I met you. So
that's right.
yeah, it's been a minute.
It, and we started off our work together in HIV and AIDS.
Mhm.
And I always think that that work was such a great sort of training ground if you want to think about how to think about wellness and health and recovery and a whole bunch of things in complex times because it was such a uniquely situated time. And I know you stayed in the industry and field far longer than I have, but maybe tell me a little bit, having been in the field on the front lines or a variety of different lines for the past 30 years at least, what has kept you rooted?
I think a sense of purpose. I think when I started with you 30 years ago, um, my course of where I wanted to be was not necessarily nonprofit work, right? And so, but at the same time, I come from a family of service. So I was very used to working in community, even as a teenager, because it was required of our family. So, this understanding that the work that I'm doing is a part of my family's legacy, who I feel in my spirit, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's never a question. I've never questioned what I'm doing. Um, and so I think that's kept me really rooted. Now, of course, the journey is what it is. The journey can take you ups and downs and around, but the purpose is what has driven and has kept me focused um, and even kept me sane and understanding that I'm still in the right place. Um, Even though sometimes, like I said, it may feel a little rocky.
So I love that. And so trying to think about purpose. Can you define, and I know I didn't share this in the beginning, but what has been your purpose? Because again, I know of all the things that you've ever said to me, human services and helping professions was not initially a part of your calling. But what has been your sense of purpose that has guided this work?
Again, it's really has been service. It's interesting. I just had this conversation with my team in this past week, and we were talking about the mission of the organization, and I kind of saw them getting into the weeds of the process of doing the work. Developing the program, developing the workshop, and I was like, wait a minute, y'all, that's a sidestep to the actual purpose, which is service. And explaining to them that we're in a unique situation, that the end product or the end game is to help humans and human beings. We're not producing something per se, right? I think sometimes people get a little confused about what we're doing here, right? And so the end game is to help people, to be of service to people, be a resource to people. And I think that has been something that's been the driver always. And I really truly did learn that from my family. In that, in all ways, in all aspects of life, you have something to offer to somebody else. And so that continues to be that kind of central focus of what I really do try to impart to people when I'm talking to them about work. So regardless, if I started my young life, I wanted to be a broadcaster. I wanted to be an air personality through, high school and college. But service was still there. I still had to go back home and still work in community. So it's just always been there.
So, if you were going to give one little tip and strategy, I think you would say if you feel untethered, go back and figure out your why
Your
and get
why.
grounded in your why, and that will kind of keep you fortified.
I think the
I
why
love
matters.
it. I
Yeah,
think about that.
yeah, the why matters. I think the why, unfortunately, because life and does its thing, and that why gets confused and twisted around sometimes, and you have to rediscover the why. Um, but the why always matters. It really is important to staying rooted.
So, thank you. And so, the next question I want to ask, because I think it's so useful and I've seen you embody this so well, but what practices, values, uh, have do you use to sort of stay well? Like, what are some? How do you operationalize it? Like, what does it look like in the ground or in your life?
Prioritizing it, and I know people say that, and I've heard people say that and didn't practice it, and was still trying to find ways, right? Like, I can take off on Mondays, or I can schedule my schedule a certain kind of way. And it was really a relative. I was talking to her about it maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And she says, well, don't you schedule your everything that you do, you schedule it. You really are in charge of how you live every single aspect of your life. Right. And I kind of was like, what are you talking about? She said, well, because of the weathering on my body, I have fibromyalgia. And so I'm always in a state of pain and I have to monitor that. She's like, why don't you just take off? Do a respite
Mm.
every so many weeks and plan that out according to your schedule. Um, and that's what I do. And I do it religiously. And I do it so that everybody understands what that week is about. And that includes family. My daughter who works for me, like Lyric works for you. When she calls me during that week, she even says, this is not about work. This is personal. This is family, because I won't talk to her if it's about work. I'm very clear. I inform all my funders. I inform everyone that I need this break and this time to be alone, to be quiet, and to regroup and rethink. And I do it with intention, so it's not just I'm just laying around or whatever. I really am trying to do some kind of inner work every respite. I'm really asking some questions of myself. Um, but I'm truly trying to rest, you know, mind, body, spirit, and detach from, even detaching from that purpose for that week, to really put
So
value.
I have so many questions, thoughts, because I'm sure it, right? If what so if you were, so I hear that in designing good practices, you first of all you are a leader, so you had to have some vision around it. So you're asking leaders to sort of be really intentional and reflective of the village they're trying to create, the work they're trying to create, the organizations, and to embody what they need and not to be afraid to know that you can take some breaks from the vision to recenter yourself. And then if you were, I'm gonna have you wear another hat because I know you influence other organizations. If you were going to talk to other organizational leaders who organizations, how
Mhm.
would you, what kinds of policies would you ask for to support their leaders, right? So
Yeah. Uh, and it's a lot. I think you see a lot of framing around workplace wellness, and people are trying to figure out what that looks like for their organization as a whole. I know we've had to do it internally as well, and so it is really looking at operationally what can you do so that you can take the needed breaks, you can step away, and have you designed your operations so that all aspects aren't just depending on you alone. And that was a hard lesson that I had to learn, is I could not be everything at all times to the organization. And so that I can take breaks, I can walk away. And then I think also, and this was how therapy is really good, is that I was very anxious. I wasn't feeling well, and there were some meetings I wanted to get to, and I was like, "Oh, I can't really." This is pre-COVID, so there was no Zooming, and I was trying to get people on a conference call, and she really had to check me and ask me why did I think that I was necessary or needed in those spaces all the time, and do I think the work could still happen with me not in the room? And I had to go, "Yeah, it probably will still happen.
yeah,
You're right." And so then I had to look at not being so arrogant about, I got to be here, I got to be there. If I can't be there, somebody else is going to do what needs to get done. And so it's a kind of a balancing act around that, because we know, everybody wants to be in the rooms where it happens. Um, but sometimes you can't be, because you need to take care of yourself. And so I think leaders have to kind of look at what they can do organizationally so that they can take breaks, and then actually implement for all the staff to have those same kind of breaks, and value those PTO times and things like that. So
that is wonderful. And, in full transparency, I was the person who thought that we could be in every single space with limited staff and limited resources. And I thought we could be all things to all people. And so, when we were working together and you are part of an infrastructure where we're plugging in every single hole and saying yes to everything, all because it's interesting and aligned with mission and vision, but often beyond capacity. It's very wonderful that you've been like, nope, not replicating that. And although it might have met a lot of needs, and there were a lot of people who had expectations, you were clear about your no, about what did and didn't make sense to you. So
absolutely.
thank you for modeling how to do that, how to set some good limits.
I've
All
had to
right.
learn.
And I, we've been talking in this space about, I don't know why the internet is weird. There is something that people keep saying in like common, on social media in the world. We love to brag that we don't look like what we've been through,
Mm,
and that we prioritize, like being super high functioning, and as if the scars don't show up or that there aren't scars. And sometimes I think there's a generational impact on that because people don't think that we've been through anything. There's a
right.
community impact, a funder impact, there's a lot of different things when you function really well, and then people don't really see the complexities. Uh, so if you weren't just like faking it till you make it, what are one or two things that you have done so that you're not just masking or looking like you're holding it together? How is it that you've been able to function well and manage the complexities of life?
Um, I think I'm like everybody else. I have done that, but I think the very unique thing, and therapy is wonderful because this came from my therapist. So when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, um, she was like, "Oh, this might be good for you," and I was like, "What are you talking about, lady? What are you talking about?" Mainly because it's an indicator of it's too much. So
Mm.
when things are happening, it's too much. When my body starts to kind of I feel shoulders or she's like, as soon as that means it's too much, your brain and your body
Mm.
are telling you it's time to stop. And so with that, I've literally have used that. But we of course don't want to get people to a point where chronic stress has done a work on their bodies. I don't want anybody to get fibromyalgia to do that. But there probably are things that are telling you it's time to readjust. When we're talking about, being faking it till you make it, and when you're talking about, functioning out for some reason, being a functional alcoholic popped in my head. You know what I'm saying? Like you're still an alcoholic, but you're functioning through life, and some people might not even know that you have this issue.
Mm.
And I think that is a very it's the way that so many of us move. We're so good at masking and don't realize it does manifest. It comes out of you.
Mm.
It's in how you treat your staff, your family, yourself, your body. All those things still come out. And so you don't, of course, like I said, want to get to the point where you have so done a stressful work on your body where you have a chronic illness like I do. But and I've listened enough to understand that I have to stop and pause and I have to make sure that I'm okay. And I think that is the key. I think we've also, as leaders, center our work so much that we forgot that it's just over here. It's not who you are,
Mhm.
right? And so you need to get back to understanding who you are first. That is just one of the very many things that you do. And I think once you get
Yeah.
that in your head, I mean, I even told my daughter one time that I'm Rhonda first, and mom is just one of those things. And she was like, "Oh my god!" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I gotta function as I got to be Rhonda to be your mom and to be your mother. I
Yeah.
can't function out of that." And I think that's what, as leaders, we so become the position, the the focus, the goal, where I want to get to, the organization, that we lose sight of who we are and those other wants and needs and desires that we have. So making it till you make it, yeah, I mean, we get that because we all have used that to kind of get through it, but it can damage you if you do it too long.
Wow. Yeah. And our bodies tell the story frequently. And I loved how you said our bodies tell the story, our
Mm-hmm.
work tells the story because, good intentions don't lead to good outcomes. And when you are on fumes or not at your full capacity or not like doing that introspective, as you talked about, that reset work, you don't lead in the way that you want. So leading and bleeding is not a cool look,
Yeah.
and it's also pretty harmful for the people that we story where about someone having done something, particularly within human services or nonprofits, about like, you know, some financial something or some program slide or maybe a relapse or whatever, right? We hear about those stories. It's so often to believe like it's a function of the nonprofit industry rather than a symptom of a system that really elevates masking and not being authentic and not asking for help and not slowing down. And so we will, and then people go, see, those people aren't ethical too. And then it becomes sort of self-reinforcing instead of this redesigning the system to
Yep.
make it functional for people. So, right. I see you nodding. It's just
I
a
agree.
heartbreak when something happens.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to say something. I'm going to go off the divert for a second. So one of the things that Lyric is doing, so Lyric is our assistant director, and
Mm-hmm.
she's starting a group for people in the queer community
Mm-hmm.
who are leaders and helpers who also have chronic illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I know because of your wisdom around wellness, and she's thinking about it from a wellness orientation and
Mm-hmm.
focus. Do you have it? Do you have any insight about why you think um, leaders in the queer community might need something specific around wellness, particularly if they are running organizations or providing services or educators, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it still functions in the same way that, how me saying we're focusing on women and especially Black women, it is definitely understanding it fully. What are some of those concerns and issues and those things that are driving folks to have that kind of chronic illness and those things that are happening to them in that way? And I think this is how she has to get very specific and really ask those questions to the community that she's working with and getting a better understanding. I think there's it's kind of twofold in a way that humans are humans are humans, and so there are certain things that are just going to overlap in the way that you work, in the way that you do the thing. You know what I'm saying? So it may not be anything that's super specific, but getting a true understanding of those very niche things that are specific to the queer community, um, that are stressful. That I mean, I think that's the thing is like when we're talking about Black women, I'm always having to look at that extra thing, right? Like it's not just about all women, but what is that extra thing that is really impacting us? Is it, hearing all this stuff about relationships and Black women on social media and how that's impacted? That's a very specific thing to Black women. And what you see and how we're challenged and those kind of things. And I think Lyric just has to kind of look at right now, especially with all the changes that are happening at the federal level and even at some level in community, of the lack of support that's come up for the queer community and how she's going to um, fill in the gap, right? And I think that is going to be very key in the work that she's doing. But I want everyone to kind of find their own humanity and the work that they're doing. Um, and so that you don't get so caught up in the population of it, and that you look at the human side of it as well, right? Because that's a nonprofit thing of I'm serving this people, I'm serving those people, I'm serving this group. It's just kind of how we dive into it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, and and I just remember in our work with HIV and AIDS, and it's one of the reasons why we decided, well, it's been work that she's called to, but it's one of the things that we decided is that we found, it's sort of like being a Black woman working with other Black women, that dual identity, the dual roles, the serving people that you on one end, and then going to the grocery store and having the same experiences. It's that there's a different kind of additional pressure when you can't off your identity, when people walking out your front door, and
Absolutely. Hmm.
that's kind of where you live and work and serve. And so when you can't get off, I think it's a different level of pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I appreciate her taking on that journey.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask, I'm looking at the time, and I'm also aware that you're in Indiana, so, and we just talked about the queer community. So I'm gonna ask a couple of questions that are more specific about how we stay. What would you offer around how to promote healing and wellness in challenging times? So I won't ask the question that I did write that I hate about what do individuals and communities most need now, because in some ways I feel like I have the answer. It's like what everybody else needs, right? I always hate that question. I don't know why I wrote it. But I think what I meant was when we think about vulnerable communities or communities that have been overly impacted by like the social, cultural, political changes that going through, we've been going through.
Yes.
um, what do you think people who are dealing with high levels of stress and adversity need most now? What do the people need? What do leaders need? And what do communities need?
Oh, that is such a big, it's huge because we need all the things, right? We need all the things. I know, I've been thinking about this myself just in the work and just even in our approach to changing the way that we're doing the work, more so around community care and how um, organizations have been approaching working with communities may need to change right now. It was something I was talking to my daughter about, just her generation. She's millennial, younger millennial. And we were talking about community work because, like I said, my family does community work. Sydney, was right, like Lyric was right by my side. But she was saying how she said, I really don't think community individuals are taught that community care anymore. How do you make sure Miss Jones
Mm.
is okay and has her medication? How do you cut the grass of your neighbor? How do you just instinctively, right? Like not even it's a performative way, but just let me make sure these
Yeah.
are things okay. I do think there's got to be some of that coming back, and that is not so organizationally heavy. That the
Mm.
organizations are carrying that load because we don't have the funding that we've had. We have to, organizations are closing, and so I really think as a leader, as an organization, it's really how do we help people, right? It's kind
Mm.
of that, and understanding whatever resources that we may have to help that along, we're there to fill that gap. But I do think community care is really going to have to be one of those things that we help each other through all of these impasses, even though we're talking about stress and chronic stress. But it does help if Miss Jones knows that her medication is going to be paid for next month because Mr. Smith down the street said, I got you next month. Um, it's just
Yeah.
going to be some of those things. And even when we're talking to our participants, we're having to tell them that a little bit. It's back to who do you know? What is your social capital? And how do you guys talk about where resources are and how do you pull your own resources to really kind of help reduce the stress amongst your own little crew, your own little village, right? Um, so that's kind of my thing, something I've been thinking about because there's so much stuff happening. It's
Mm.
kind of hard to pinpoint a way or a thing and how we can have this collective focus on how we're reducing stress amongst different communities. I just really think we have to get back to helping each other a little bit, um, and organizations kind
Yeah.
of guiding that a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Woo! I love that answer. And can I tag on? Because this is like my
Mhm.
heart's work.
Yeah.
I believe no one's coming to save us. No
Right.
one. I think we've overly professionalized
Mhm.
everything, helping,
Everything.
and we've turned everything into like some that you have to have some sort of like
Certification.
master's degree, and it's a
Yep.
job. And no one is coming to save us. No one. And we have to, I mean, I'm in a community where there are, I don't know, like 800 nonprofits and for 100,000 people. Like it makes, right,
Yep.
makes, right, nonprofits everywhere.
Mhm.
And that is, first of all, a not sustainable model. And also what we really need are individuals who know each other, who can connect each
Mhm.
other, and maybe not necessarily, again, as you said, not through a program, not through
Mhm.
some form, like just like, do I know my neighbors? Do I go outside? Do I wave? Do they know me? I think we need to live in communities, apartment structures where I can go outside, and if I hypothetically needed a cup of sugar or something,
Mhm.
I would be able to have enough of a relationship with you that, again, I could be doing the sugar today and then you return the favor because maybe you need milk tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Like, what is
Yep.
it like to live in a community where, as if we do have organizations, do we collaborate and share?
Mhm.
No organization can be all things to all people. If you are trying to be it, you're probably causing harm, right? Like, how do we rethink this work in a very new, innovative way
Mhm.
rather than waiting for superheroes to come in, burn
Yep.
themselves out, leave, us feel betrayed when they leave, or say the
Yep.
program didn't work because it can't work if it's a
Yep.
program, right?
Yep.
Like, so that is one of my heartbreaks, and I love the language of community care, and
Mhm.
I just wish it had more resonance with more people.
Yeah, I believe it's possible. But we were talking in our staff, we were talking about block parties. And I said, but isn't it funny that most block parties you see are run by organizations? They have the block party in the neighborhood. It's not done with the community, or it's organized by organizations for community to come out. And so, how do we really show people that they do have a wealth of information? And sometimes it is just information sharing. Like, girl, go over to blah, blah,
Mm.
blah and get your thing. Or, hey, I know where, in understanding that you are still a very much a part of the health and well being of the organization, of the community, and share that information. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I really do think, and I'm so with you, that nonprofits is too many. I mean, I hate to criticize folks when I see a new nonprofit, and I'm like, well, aren't they already doing that over there? Or aren't there 18 of those already? Like, you don't want to, and that's the thing, you're
Mm.
not
Right?
killing
Yeah.
a person. Yeah, it's killing a person's vision, but just kind of redirecting it in a different kind of way so that we can really do the work, like you said, in a more effective and impactful way. So yeah, I just really think that if we all can start really thinking about each other in a different kind of way, and um, that would help. Are we asking for help? Are we helping? Are we offering up how we can help another person as well? So yeah.
Oof, I love it. So, oof, and just to, I mean, just imagine. I know my mom has so inspired me. She's in a senior building in Indy and everything. And so when I think about like the changing in food policies around
Mhm.
SNAP and food assistance, uh,
Mhm.
one of the things that many people did, but I think they stopped it after COVID was, if someone's going to a food for food assistance, to bring things back and don't let things rot or throw it away. Like, put it in a communal space. If
Yeah.
you know Miss Sally really loves um,
Mhm.
potatoes and you are not a potato person,
Yeah.
distribute it to around so that everybody has what they need and do it in ways that left behind.
Mhm.
And it's good for your heart. We know, like, the very happy brain, the more I give, the more my brain is happy. But
Mhm.
also, I know that there's so much panic and we have so many restrictive policies coming.
Yeah.
And if we don't start moving differently, sometimes my heart just aches because I can think about how much devastation is coming if we don't learn to move differently. Again, I
Absolutely.
always go back to HIV and AIDS. People learn to move differently.
Absolutely. I say the same thing, Karen, about the HIV community, and how services and how connection happened really needs to be studied and replicated. Like, I don't think people understand the late 80s, early 90s, and the work that was happening was just unbelievable, and we kind of need that same energy now.
Yes. There's a local, she's retired now, Julie Pride in Champaign. She was the director of our public health, who was also very active in the HIV and AIDS epidemic. She also agrees. And, there's someone that we work with in Indianapolis, Kathy Archie Morgan. And we've talked about like there needs to be like a playbook around how to write what we learned.
Yeah.
And again, I know we had a unique perspective because we were on the periphery, right? We weren't, we were doing work, but not like in the private meetings where people were making decisions. So I think we need the Tom Barton box and the other people who were in the room when it happened, and who helped organize the, invisible fundraisers and work with the bag ladies to make things happen. Just because I think people, we're coming. So again, I don't want to leave on a negative note, but I just think can't wait for Superman. And I think that there are some models that have happened historically. One recently that a lot of people have lived through, that we always act like that it's the question, what do we need to succeed? Well, the stuff that everybody else has needed. So we've been here before. Why don't we go back and do that rather than keep asking this question, and not building on, intellectual capacity.
Right.
So, sorry.
We're good.
You can tell it's not. So, do you have closing thoughts about what do you recommend? What do we need as leaders or individuals or community to stay rooted and grounded in complex times? Do you have any closing words for us?
I think it goes back to self, and I don't want to say self-care because we kind of run that to the ground and it means 18 different things to 30 different people. But I do think taking care of yourself in a more intentional way, just ensuring that everything is intentional, right? And so the way that you take care of yourself is not performative. And I know that sounds weird because how can doing yoga be performative? But you know what I'm saying? Or doing these things be that. But we have found in the wellness space that sometimes things aren't moving in the way that we thought because we kind of have this kind of performative thing and not people really understanding how these tools and actually should be used and to help you know what I'm saying? Like, what is actually the real purpose of doing these things? I think for leaders, I always question the why. I mean, we talked about that in the beginning. Is the why still the same why? Whys can shift a little bit, and I don't know. I think I'm rambling a little bit because I think intention. I would say this: being intentional about every aspect of your life and the way that you address your health and well-being, family and community. These are not passive things, and when you keep passing them along, things like chronic illness and some of these other things kind of pop out. I always tell people that's why you have Karens. Those are folks who are dysregulated, and I don't feel I don't laugh at that. I think those are folks who really are having some concerns and issues about how to regulate things around them, and we have to start being concerned that we have more and more people who are like that. So intention and just finding space to love yourself, and as my mom always says, love one another. So I've always picked that up too. Just love people. Just love people. Love everybody. So So that's my closing.
I love it, love it, love it. So when you said that's why you have Karen, I looked at myself because I thought you were calling me out. But I
Oh,
loved you're like, yep, this is why you get Karen. But no, I really appreciate your words of wisdom and the fact that you made time and space to share. And I hope someone was inspired. I frequently run into people who watched the show or caught glimpses. And so I hope it left you with a little bit of inspiration and hope. And Rhonda is minimizing her work, but I hope you will check out her website. We'll make sure we put a link, but you'll see that they really do focus on like the why, not the what, because as she said, you can do yoga and coloring and it become yet another to do or again performative. And so I think you have embodied these values so well. So I am so appreciative of you taking time and sharing some of your wisdom and pushing through. So thank you. And I hope you will rest and be well.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate
Bye
it.
bye.
Bye bye.